Right, but the second set of bonds aren't gonna be, when are we gonna get the second phase of the bonds? 2 years? 3 years? How's that work? For the state revolving, I know we're doing the first 10 million. What about the second phase? Right. The loan, the
Yeah, the
loan.
loan, we should begin to receive that shortly after we begin the second phase of the treatment plant, which, if I'm not mistaken, is next calendar year, but we don't have to begin repaying that until 6 months after the project is done.
6 months.
After the project's
It's
done, so,
Is it 6 months after the project's complete,
1 year.
the state revolving fund? Yeah.
and the project will be done when?
I
3
believe it
years,
was
4 years?
Early 2014, I believe, was the last completion date I saw.
So we're gonna raise everything now for 3 years out? That's what we're doing, right? Yes, no?
Like I said, I know what you're saying, but all I can tell you is that that's the ordinance that was passed in December.
Right, I understand what
these
the
rates in
ordinance
there.
was, but
So,
the ordinance, when we did it, I remember last year, was 98 cents. I think the whole city of Chicago and Water Commission was 21 cents. So our share was like 70 cents. So this year is gonna be even higher than last year, 96 cents. Because we already passed the 69 cents. The 69 cents passed. That's done. Okay.
Alderman Woods.
Yeah, just for my sake, a little clarity. I understand the mayor's position, and I would agree if we could lower the water rates or not raise them as much as they're being raised. But correct me if I'm wrong, we spent money to do a study to figure out what the rates should be. We enacted an ordinance. And in the future, at some other time, I think would be a good time to address this if we wanted to change that ordinance. But right now, to get that raise, because we're talking, the revolving loan fund, we're not 100% sure we're going to get that loan fund. We could have to go to other sources to get that. So as I've maintained all the time, until somebody can tell me exactly what all those numbers are, where we're getting the loans, what the total's going to be on the treatment plant, including all the extras. I'm really not in favor of lowering those rates. When all those numbers are more concrete and ascertained, I would certainly be on board to do whatever we can do for the citizens. But till then, I think we need to follow the course that we set and spent money to set for at least the next 2 years, especially since next year is going to be flat without a raise other than DuPage County, if I'm wrong. Correct, rather. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
So did I hear that right? So when City of Chicago and the Water Commission give us a raise next January, or we're not raising anything then? Is that what we're doing? It's gonna be zero. So when they raise us 58 cents, we're gonna do zero? I don't know. Art, is that what you were thinking?
That was my understanding.
Is that staff's understanding also, or, I'm just curious, or in January, we're gonna say, well, they gave us 58 cents, we're doing another 58 cents.
Mr. Wilson.
yeah, my understanding, and I may defer to Mr. Steffen here for a little backup, was that the DuPage Water Commission portion would need to be passed along, but the city component would stay frozen.
Yes, sir.
When you say the city component, you talking about the city of Chicago? Their 48 cents? Or something else that we would do? Because I understood that you guys want to freeze them the next 1 or 2 years. The water, possibly raise the sewer. Is that right?
To the first part of the question, when I said the city, I meant city of Wooddale. Whatever the city of Chicago and the DuPage Water Commission passes on, that rate model assumed that we increased our rates to mirror their increase. And
So,
the city portion that I said would remain frozen was anything that the city of Wooddale would add on top of that.
So we're looking at this 96 cents, but then whatever Chicago and the Water Commission do, which I believe was 58 cents off the top of my head, then we're gonna pass that also in January. It's not like Alderman Woods was just thinking, right? So we did the 69, 96, and then 58 in January. Is that correct? So I understand.
Using the current ordinance, yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
That was my under-
So it's a matter of charging it now for what the individuals are, what the residents are getting, or not charging part of it now and waiting to next year and perhaps falling behind on our amount of money to pay our bills to the Water Commission and so forth, and the sewer plant. We want to stay ahead of it to not spend money we don't have, if you get my meaning. And we did, as Alderman Wood said, we did make this decision a while back. Alderman Woods?
Yeah, just, I did understand that we were gonna, whatever costs we incur through raises or rate hikes from whether it's DuPage Water Commission or the City of Chicago, we were gonna pass those on penny per penny. But we, City of Wooddale, weren't gonna add anything more to that. We just didn't want us to take a step backwards, because if we didn't pass any of that increase on, then the increases that we had this year would be lost and we'd be taking a step backwards. That was, so what Brad said was my understanding. I think we're all on the same page.
Exactly. Mr. Mayor?
Sorry. I'm over the limit, I guess.
Yeah. Being the mayor, we'll let you be.
Thank you, thank you. So, we were 1,500,000. We were gonna go to 1,800,000. What does this actually bring us to now? Because we were gonna do $1.07, figuring the county and the city of Chicago was gonna be 20 cents. So it probably would have been about, I don't know, 85 cents. So where are we going to? Are we going to $2 million, 2.2? Where's the staff gonna bring us on this? I'm not sure, because where's the number gonna be? What's our goal to pay for the treatment plant? I understand we have to pay for the treatment plant. I wanna know what the number is, because 5 years ago, I heard it was $1 million, and we're at 1,500,000 and rising. So I'm just curious. That's all.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based upon the interest rate we just got for the bonds and what we've heard the prevailing interest rate for the state revolving fund is,
A little
We're
bit
as-
louder, please.
okay, we're estimating that the debt payments, once everything starts going through, will be somewhere in the $1.5 million a year range. At the same time, I believe, and Mr. Kramer would probably agree, the city wants to continue the I&I study, which is programmed into the CIP for an average cost of $400,000 a year. So right there, presuming you're paying all the principal and interest and you want to do the I&I study, you're at $1.9 million before you do any water mains, before you do anything else. So, I mean, at a minimum, you have to be at 1.5 to cover the P&I for the bonds. From there, it's really, a council decision what projects you want to fund, which ones you want to pay for, how many water mains you want to do. And our answers might differ a little bit on that, but that's, a policy call for you guys to see what additional projects you want to do on top of that.
I think it would help also if we just look at the next page as the fund that will be paying out. Alderman Eugene Wesley.
My question is, here's the situation. We just had a discussion, briefly discussion in Public Works about the water main on Irving Park Road. $6 million we got a price tag to redo that Irving Park Road. I assume, if I ain't mistaken, the money that is in that water fund will pay for that water main replacement when we have to do it. Am I correct or am I wrong?
I guess I'd say define pay.
We decided to award a contract today for $6 million to replace the water main on Irving Park Road. Where would part of that money come from? Will it come out of water sewer fund, yes or no?
Part of the money would certainly, yes.
Okay, so my guess is right there. We just had a discussion what it was going to cost to replace that water main, ballpark figure. And we need to move forward with that water main if we have to. So I say leave it.
Alderman Coles?
If they're gonna charge us 58 cents per thousand, and we're not gonna charge anything for it, where is that money gonna come from to pay for that 58 cents? The only thing that'll be coming out of is our reserve that we have setting, because these are not gonna be able to take care of it, because you're not sending any money into these funds, because you're not gonna charge that 58 cents. So I thought we had a 5-year agreement, which was spread out on the amount of money that we were gonna pay on the water, every water bill for the next 5 years. And I think we made a 5-year study on it. And we had it all figured out, somewhere ended up around 60-something cents or 80-something cents more. Well, I think it was $6 for 1,000 gallons. And now we're not gonna use that chart that we worked on. I don't know what we're talking about anymore. You're talking about, you don't wanna charge this, but we have to pay this. I probably are the biggest water bill guys up here, because in my summertime, I use a lot of water. And I pay a lot of water, and I've never complained, but I do complain to my wife. But I never complain about paying for water. Without water, we can't live. You can't live without water. That means you're gonna have to pay for it somehow. Somehow, you're gonna have to get the money in the fund in order to pay for the repairs on anything that you have to do. Now, you guys are talking back and forth, but if you're not gonna take the increases that Chicago's gonna give us, or DuPage gives us, we're in trouble. Somebody has to pay for it. And I'm gonna get crucified by everybody here, and probably everybody that don't like what I said, but I'm just saying, we're gonna have to pay for it, and we just have to bite the bullet. That's all I wanna say.
I'm gonna take one more comment, Alderman Woods, and we'll call the vote.
Yeah, just kind of recap a little bit. These dollar amounts and raises all came about from the study we did, which is linked to the CIP that we did, strategic plan that we did. It's all woven in there. And again, I have to say, until we can ascertain what the true costs are, especially with the treatment plant, because that's a big project, the Irving Park water main, we really need to keep a mindful watch on the dollars that we raise. We can't go backwards. And I think, a couple years down the road or a year down the road, when we get closer to that, that's something as a city council, because nobody wants to charge more than we have to charge. I'm hearing that you really don't know what the number is, whether it's $1.5 million or 2 million or 2,000,001. But that, again, that was all charted. That course was charted. Those dollar amounts were charted. And for me, this isn't the, we're not going to change that ordinance tonight. So that debate needs to take place in another forum if we want to change that. And for now, I think that we have to go ahead with what's in the budget and move forward. Thank you.
As Alderman Wood said, I don't think anybody up here would like to raise anything. I'm personally on a fixed income, and every time I get a utility bill or anything else, it hurts. But we have to have water. We cannot do without it. And we have to keep up to date on what we're paying for the water so that the city doesn't go into a negative with that rate, with that budget. So do we need a motion now, or do we go to the next page, or what?
Yeah, certainly don't need a motion for this. Like I said, on the other set of slides was just a consensus that the page or the department or whatever is okay. So if the consensus is to leave it as presented, that's really all we need. We don't need votes on every single item.
Can I have voice vote? Do we stay as it presented? Yes? Yes. No? Motion carries, so we stay as presented.
Okay. Let's see. And just to finish off the revenue section real quick, everything else is pretty much on par with last year. The miscellaneous items are up $4,000, and the tower leases are up $8,000, and that's primarily just based upon the contracts. There's an escalator in each of the tower lease agreements, and that's all that's reflecting is the escalator in those agreements. This page is, the top part of that page is a summary of the 4 divisions within the water and sewer fund and what those operational expenses are. Below that are the transfers out of those divisions. And then flows down, shows depreciation, and then the total expenses for the water fund for the year. But as you can see, of that 9.2 million, 4.4 of that is in transfers, 3.75 to the water and sewer capital projects fund, and the standard 688 to the general fund. So a good portion of that, about 40% of that, is dedicated straight to capital, which again includes the I&I, the Irving Park Roadway water main project, the treatment plant, everything goes in the CIP. And the net assets number down there, that does include the infrastructure. So just be mindful that that's not an indicator of cash in the enterprise funds. That's all assets held by the system, treatment plant, water mains, et cetera.
You do show an income loss there of 2,703,000. What's the, why?
Well, because of the transfers going out. Like I said, that 4.4 million going out is still an expense to the fund. And so that gets netted against the revenues to show the surplus or deficiency over expenditures versus revenues. So if you weren't doing that 3.75 in capital, if you were doing the 1.5, the 1.8 that was plugged into the CIP pro forma a number of years ago, that number would come down by about $2 million. Then there's a few other things in there that would come out as well. The depreciation would go down as well. So you'd be right about break even if you weren't doing all the extra capital. And that the extra capital was folded into the rate model that we did with Baxter and Woodman as well. There was a plan to draw down of cash from the water fund to pay for projects. To, believe it or not, have to raise the rates higher than they're already going. There was a planned drawdown of cash to accommodate for that.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Mayor?
Hey, Brad, is this the fund that has the cash in it, or is it the operating?
This is the operating fund.
So this one has the cash.
Correct.
And after we take this $2.7 million loss, how much money we still have in this fund?
At the end of this fiscal year, we're anticipating it to be somewhere in 5.5, $5.6 million range. And so if you take out another 2.7, 3 TB around, 2.8 million, give or take.
Okay.
And the fund balance policy for this is 35% of operations. So you're still above that, so.
Okay.
Any other questions? We just need to concur with staff. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Wesley.
Okay, Brad. Income loss. That's not up there, but you have it something else here. It says 2,703,000. That's 13. Are we on the same thing? And then in 2011, it was 1,173,000. Why is there so much of a difference there?
The largest change in that is that transfer to the water and sewer capital projects. It's kind of in the middle there. Anthony, if you can move the mouse there. Yeah, that transfer to water CP. You notice in fiscal 11, it was only 800,000. And then in 12 and 13, it jumps up to 3.4 and 3.7 million. So your drawdown of cash, your net loss is driven by that number right there in those 2 years.
Excuse me. This number versus this number goes up to that one, right?
Who's showing
Okay,
the transfer here?
okay, thank you.
So we just concur with staff recommendation?
The-
Any questions? Comments? We all concur? Fine. Next item.
And now we'll go to the Public Utilities Division, the infamous page 182. So as you can see, nothing has changed from an organizational standpoint or employee standpoint in this fund from last year. The change from 11 to 12 was the folding of the storm sewer employees fully into the Utilities Division. But nothing new this year for the Utilities Division from a personnel standpoint. So if we move to 185. Personnel is up. It's on par with 2010. Again, it has to do with the full accounting of the employees that were in the storm sewer department before getting moved into the utilities division. They're all under one umbrella now. So while it looks a little interesting, that significant jump, that's offset by a decrease. That number went away from the storm sewer utility, and then it just migrated from the 490 division to the 412 division. So it's the same money. It's just which silo it's in within the water fund. Contractual, really nothing going on there. Only a $500 difference.
Could we stop and go back there for a moment? On the seasonal employment, the last budget, we were at 3,290. This budget, we're 16,000, projected at 16. How did that jump from 3,000 to 16?
I will defer to Mr. Kramer on that question.
I think each year we keep that budget number about the same, about $16,000. We just chose not to hire seasonals in the utilities division for that year. Some years we hire more than others. We traditionally are on a 2-year painting cycle for hydrants. So traditionally, if we take a year off, we won't hire as many.
So this should be an off year if it's every 2 years. We had 16 for the present one. Wouldn't it, then if it's 2-year cycle, it would go down this year.
Right, well, if we weren't gonna paint hydrants this year.
And we are,
If we don't paint hydrants, I'm gonna kind of leave it up to Mark to find out if he feels there's still an area of town that he wants to focus on. Otherwise, we're gonna go into facilities and start painting the inside of facilities.
any other questions? I'll have Mr. Wesley, Eugene Wesley.
Before we get too far into this budget here, I have one question. The salaries for all our employees, did we figure that in the salaries this year about a contract that is due up for negotiations in this city? Do we figure the dollar amount that it may cost us, or do we not put this in the budget? Or estimate what previous contracts were? Do we work that in this salary, or am I going to be surprised at the next?
Mr. Wilson.
We did put an estimated value in there. I'm hesitant to say on camera in case they pull the tape and watch it. But we did put an estimated value in there predicated on some prior contracts and where we think it'll probably wind up and based upon direction that you've given staff on recent contract negotiations.
Okay. May I do one other question? The standby pay. First, my memory, what is that standby pay that we pay? For 5,000.
I'll defer to Mr. Kramer for a more concise answer.
Thank you. Basically, the standby pay is, we have somebody on call carrying a phone every day to answer water emergencies. So that number is generated basically by that standby account for that. If they physically come in to do work, that then goes to the overtime account. Standby is to carry the phone.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
You need Mr. Roy Wesley.
Soil testing and disposal, $15,000.
Yeah, I'll defer to Mr. Kramer, but that is new this year. I believe there's some new IEPA regulations that require us to test the spoil from main breaks and et cetera. But again, I'll defer to Mr. Kramer.
Yeah, at the bottom of that page, you'll see item 5, clean construction, demolition, debris, CCDD testing and disposal. The IEPA was so kind to transfer over some new requirements every time the city digs within its parkway that is considered construction debris. And that construction debris that we generate must be tested, soil tested, to make sure it's clean before we can dispose of it. If we use it somewhere else in the city, we're not required to, but as you know, we don't really have much area left in town. We're not doing any building ourselves that we generate material or fill that we can use, so we haul that material off to an off-site location, traditionally paying for it. In order to do that now, those dumps are requiring a clean bill of health of that soil, if you will. And that money is the possibility, if we have to pay for testing, to pay to have it hauled to a special waste facility if it is contaminated or undesirable.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the past, we could have just given it to the residents who want to fill in their swales, but I'm joking, of course. Go on, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. On
Question
180
down there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, on 186, the commodities lines didn't really change. Fuel is up a little bit, a couple other items up nominally, nothing too exciting. Capital outlay, the other equipment is down significantly. In the general fund, the vehicle replacements are all handled by the equipment replacement fund. Within the enterprise funds, the vehicle and equipment replacements are handled within the fund and the division in which they're dedicated to. So as you'll see, last year was about 180 for equipment replacement. This year, there's only one vehicle being replaced, so that number dropped considerably due to that effect. There's only one vehicle this year being replaced. The water commission debt, that's a static number. the transfers, we talked about those a couple pages before, and then the conferences, meetings, et cetera. Depreciation dropped a little bit. But again, nothing overly exciting there. And then the total expenses did go up a little bit, but that's largely predicated on that transfer to the Water and Sewer Capital Projects Fund and a little bit on the full accounting of the salaries, as was mentioned earlier.
Credit card processing fees. What credit cards?
The credit cards we accept at the window, and the credit cards we accept online.
And we
With
have
the
to pay
EPA?
for that.
We had two options when we set it up. We could either absorb the fees or pass on a convenience fee to the users. And at the time it was set up, it was determined for the city to absorb those fees.
I'm just wondering why we encourage something that's gonna cost us more.
Well, there is a fee on the back end, to process it, but especially the ones that come through online, it takes us about, what's it take us, 3 seconds to process however many payments come in. So if, we have 20, 30, 50 people pay online, it takes us 3 seconds versus having to rip open mail and everything else. That's significantly more time consuming from a labor standpoint, labor intensive standpoint.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Alderman Wesley.
Don't they pay for processing fees for permits by credit cards too?
The permits, yes, they are.
So why, I guess my question is processing fee, am I gonna see that in the building department too? So,
Sure, it's not in the building department, it's in the central services, the department within the general fund. But yes, there is a credit card processing fee item in the general fund, water and sewer fund, and in the commuter parking lot fund.
so this is a percentage,
Correct.
okay.
Comments, questions? I guess we're fine there. Oh, Alderman Wesley.
I have one, that really, so overall, you probably can't answer the question. The credit card processing fee, what is it costing then for the whole city? If you're telling me the building department uses it, there's a fee, the water division, and what other division?
Commuter parking lot.
Community park. So if this is a partial 7,000 or 8,000, what is it overall?
Sure, Mr. Fashoda is looking that up real quick.
I mean,
Just want to give us a second, and
I'm starting having a second thought about why did we produce this if it's really costing us more than what it's worth?
So they save staff time, right?
I mean, that's part of it. Another is just the general convenience to the residents to be able to go online, pay their water bills. Instead of having to have cash or a check with them, they can just come in with their credit card. It's like I say, the staff time is certainly a component of it. It's just, the convenience to the residents and the riders of the commuter lot. So it's a convenience thing and a staff thing.
Okay, do we have the answer what it costs for all of them? How much?
But if you add up all three lines, 13,500.
I guess it's the future, but if we could take two more questions here, Mr. Roy Wesley and Mr. Coles.
The police department's in that too, correct? Because they pay parking tickets with credit cards, can't they?
The police department, they're not on our credit card system.
Okay, so my question is, if you take a credit card, we're paying a certain percentage. Visa might be 2%, Discover might be 3%. I don't know if we could give a discount or not if you pay online. Like if I pay my cell phone bill online, it continues to come out of my checking account, I get 5% discount. Can't we just say, okay, if you pay by credit cards and say, okay, the residents pay the 2% to cover that cost? Versus if you have a checking account, it would just come out of your checking account.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly methods and ways to set it up where the cost, the convenience fee could be passed on to the end user. Um, There's different scales, because, and I know we've talked about this a little bit before, every card has a different rate. There's a different per transaction rate and a different interchange rate. Anywhere from your, secured credit card through your platinum points plus corporate card. I think, was there 25 or 30 different rates on our bill every month that we get? So, I mean, it's not, and while it is simple to say, okay, if your charge is between $0 and $20, the fee would be this, or, structure it like that, to try and say exactly what the rate is, I mean, unless you give me an exact card and exact amount, it's,
Take an
you can't figure it out, yeah. We can take an average, sure, yeah.
Mr. Coles?
All right, solve this problem. A lot of people do not carry money nowadays because they're scared to get robbed. So they use a credit card. And this is why you have everybody taking credit cards. I've seen credit cards for a cup of coffee. It's $2 and people don't have the money. So, that's the reason why people now carry credit cards only.
All finished? Concur? Okay, go ahead.
If we go on to page 187, the wastewater division, no changes in personnel or structure for this division. If we move on to 190, the personnel line items, again, those are just contractually obliged increases, and the legislatively obliged IMRF rate increase. For contractual services, it's up a little bit. There's no real smoking gun in here, aside from maintenance of the sewer mains. I know in the past, there's never really been a dedicated pool of money for the maintenance of sewer mains outside of doing an actual reconstruct. So this year, Mr. Kramer and his crews wanted a dedicated pot of money that they could use for those instead of having to kind of cherry pick from a couple different areas.
Yeah, the only big difference here is the other equipment capital outlay for the new camera truck, the 225, right? Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the same.
Correct.
Any questions? Mr. Eugene Wuzzy?
I have one question, and I have never seen this in our budget in the past, or else I miss it. Claim settlement, what is that?
Sure. That and the insurance premium line above it is an allocation of the IRMA premiums and IRMA claims. We went through a couple of years ago during the budget time trying to find some relief for the general fund, and found that the general fund was paying the freight for the entire city for its property casualty claims. We went through and did an analysis of where those claims were being generated out of, and it was determined that approximately 25% of the claims were coming from the water and sewer fund. And so we then split the IRMA payments and premiums, 75% general fund, 25% water and sewer fund.
So, so the claim is to settle with Irma if there's a problem out there? I mean,
Oh, sure. The claim settlement, we are self-insured, I believe, up to $2,500. So any claim that comes through that's under $2,500,
what type of claims? So, I mean,
accidents.
Accident claims?
Yeah, accident claims, I don't know, slip and falls, light poles, stuff like that.
but what I can understand, why would that not, maybe because this is the first time, and I've been up here, and I have never seen that put in a budget, and this is the first year I see it. Why wouldn't that go under general funds? Why would that go under a division alone, wastewater? Or I just don't understand that.
Sure. Like I said, in the past, the general fund was paying the premium for the entire city, but in analyzing the claims, it proved out that approximately, on average, 25% of the claims you know, the accidents, the light poles, the trips, whatever, were incurred by employees or at sites of the water and sewer fund. So instead of having the general fund pay those claims, it was more prudent to allocate the costs of where they're actually being incurred.
So let me do a follow-up here. I don't know if I'm understanding this wrong, and I apologize if I don't understand this right. So if we go ahead and take out a light pole, okay, with a truck or something like that, and we get an injury or whatever, okay, that's what I'm considering a claim, when everything gets involved. A claim that I feel is that, in this, what I'm reading into this is a claim if something happened to a residence area and we end up paying a claim for that resident. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this wrong. I just don't understand where we're coming from. A claim is a claim. If we wreck up a vehicle, okay, if we total 9 light poles, okay, a claim, that's I consider a claim. That should be in the general fund. Okay, because that is a accident. You can't earmark it just for one, because going through the budget, I didn't see the claim settlement in any other, through this budget. Oh, it's only in this account. So I just don't see how you're ruling. If you're saying that's where all the workman's comp claims are coming out of there, then we got a problem. Because I thought workman's comp's totally separate.
Sure.
I
yeah.
I just don't understand this. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it wrong, though. I just don't.
Those 2 line items are also present in the general fund, the central services department budget. The other 75% of them. As to why it's in one particular division in the water fund, unfortunately, there's not a central services division in the water fund, and we had to pick one. And that's the one that got picked. I mean, there wasn't a breakdown between utilities, wastewater, and plant maintenance. There wasn't a definite breakdown there. You know, so I hate to say it's arbitrary where it landed, but just like the transfer to the Water and Sewer Capital Projects Fund, that's only in the utilities division. It could be in the wastewater, so we just arbitrarily had to pick a landing spot for it. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I guess if a water employee hits a light pole, the general fund shouldn't have to pay for that. The general fund employee did not create that claim. The water fund did. So we're trying to associate the cost of our $2,500 exposure to the department that actually commits said offense.
Well, you could go ahead and put it in the general fund, and at the end of the year, deduct it out of that account. The point is, you got it into, like you just said, you got it in several accounts. Why can't you put it all in one? It's the same thing with the finance. If they borrow a car, say they borrow a car to go somewhere, or someone borrow a car, or one of our elected officials borrow a car and goes somewhere and gets in an accident, not our fault, you got a claim there. So where's that come out of?
Fund.
So again, all of the claims, as far as I'm concerned, and all these claims belong out of the general fund. And if it's a wastewater's responsibility and it happened there, then later down the line, you deduct it out of their account at the fund balance. I just don't like to see claims in different divisions. It's just a nightmare for us as elected officials to see what our bottom line is for claims, for accidents and all that other stuff, where it's coming from. I think it's only fair that all the claim stuff goes under one umbrella. I just can't see it separated. But it's up to the council. It ain't my decision. You guys do what we want, but that's my understanding. I just don't like to do claims in separate accounts. First time I see it. That's
Alderman Roy Wesley.
I would agree that it belongs in the general fund, because if our city manager takes a vehicle and gets in an accident, it comes out of a general fund. Same thing that Alderman Wesley just said. And there's more vehicles on the public works out there in the water department than there is administration or anyone else. So I mean, seeing up here, if I look at this and look at their claims later on and saying, hey, Mr. Kramer, why is these guys getting all these accidents and there's $25,000 in there? But that's not fair to that department. You guys work as a team, so throw everything in a general fund and then justify it. There.
Mr. Wilson.
Like I said, not trying to jump around, but if you go to page 152 of your budget book,
153?
152.
152.
You'll notice this is the Central Services Department of the General Fund, which is where the vast 75% of the IRMA claims and premiums are allocated to. So, well, if we want to put them all there, then we'll have to book the extra $116,000 in Central Services and increase the transfer to the general fund by $116,000 to cover those costs. It's going to be the same money either way. So we either allocate them as per the IRMA reports, or we can book it all here and increase the transfer. Doesn't much matter to me none. But from a cost accounting standpoint, we have information to allocate the charges. It's more appropriate to utilize the information and allocate it.
Mr. Woods.
Yeah, I think what Brad just said really typifies what I was going to say. Everything else, personnel split up by departments, equipment split up, paper clips, paper, everything else. It only makes sense that we split up those liabilities also. At the end of the day, accounting is one thing, dollars in and dollars out. The rest of the 300 pages of this book is a little story guide for us to follow to see where that money goes. But if they feel that that's the way it works out best, that they can track it and understand it, then it's all coming from the same pot of gold, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it should stay there. Thanks.
Okay, do we concur with staff? One objection. You can talk to him later again too about it. Continue. Please.
Yeah, aside from the inclusion of the TV truck on page 191, I don't really have any other commentary on the wastewater division.
Which item was that?
Mentioned earlier in the capital outlay, the other equipment, the TV truck, they're the $225,000 item there, 46002.
That was the new camera truck for the sewers
Correct.
and equipment.
Correct.
Any questions? We're fine.
Moving on to 192. From 11 to 12, there was the increase. It shows a half. It was actually a decrease of a half, and then the addition of the new mechanic. While the mechanic operates out of the garage, budgetarily they're put in the wastewater maintenance division as they're used to predominantly offset the costs that were previously split in the garage to maintain the water equipment. They're allocated straight out of the water fund to cover the cost of maintaining the water and sewer equipment. So no changes in staff this year. Going forward to 194, the budget for this is only up $10,000, which is all in personnel. Again, the contractually obliged and IMRF, slight increase for IMRF. Other than that, everything is within a few dollars, the same as it was the prior fiscal year.
Any questions? None, please continue.
Moving on to 195 storm sewer, there's no employees budgeted out of this fund. That 1.5 employees, it was 3 half employees in fiscal 11. Those have all migrated to the utilities division, as previously mentioned. Then moving on to 197. In aggregate, the budget is up $6,000. That is based upon the maintenance of vehicles line items up $6,000. You'll notice the footnote is for the Vactor lining and nozzles, some maintenance and needed equipment replacement for the city's Vactor.
Questions? Mr. Eugene Wesley.
I just have one question. Utility locate, is that the outfit that locates our water mains, our gas lines and all that? Or where will that fall in? What account? Or where does it go?
Defer to Mr. Kramer on the utility locates.
I'm talking about the people that relocate our water leaks and our location for before we dig. Where would that be under?
Utilities division, there's a locating line item, plus there's a locating line item here in the water and sewer fund. Storm sewer maintenance division, you'll see it, item 42045, utility locates $2,000.
Okay, now, may I do a follow-up on that? I guess I could. The location is locating, is that every time, is that a flat fee that we get charged for that?
No,
So is $2,000 enough, or here's this, obviously I'll bring it right out in the open here. We had a company that located, well, didn't show up for the locate. We had a gas line, we had a water main break by Station Drive by the firehouse. It's unfortunate that we made a call about 3:30 in the afternoon. According to state law, you can't dig until 2.5 hours until they locate. They got 2.5 hours to come out to locate it. Obviously, they didn't show up to locate it, but our guys were waiting for the location to start digging it up. By law, we could start digging after 2.5 hours. What unfortunate, we ruptured the gas line there. We dug up the gas line. That wasn't located. My problem with that is if we got running into this problem with the location outfit here coming out to locate, maybe it's time to start looking for a different location. And I'm not going to deny the budget here, but I hope we look at that situation because I don't think it's fair that, and we haven't got, and I don't know if we'll get a bill from the gas company for all the gas that was wasted there. Normally, if you rupture a line of contractor, you eat all that gas. They calculate it out and you end up paying for it. Now, I don't know if we're going to go back and get this money back from the locator people or what. But I think we've been having a little problems with our locating people here. And I don't think we'll bring it under regular meeting, but this budget may affect. We might have to go a little higher. That's what I'm saying. Do we kick that up? Because if we choose to get rid of that locator company because the increase might go up, I don't know. I just don't know on that. And that's where I'm looking at.
Curious, why can't we just locate it ourselves? Go ahead.
a couple different items. We touched on a lot in that. We do our own locates for our own infrastructure. So the utilities division locates the water and storm lines that reside underground in our city. The wastewater division will locate sanitary mains. We're all part of Julie's locating one call system in Illinois. So the first that Alderman E. Wesley was referring to, the gas line rupture, was a Julie locate. The city does not pay for that locate service for that instance. All the utilities, municipalities pay Julie a portion of money. It's not a lot per year, but you're all part of that one call system. So we're gonna pay that irregardless, and we're not really truly paying for a service, we're paying for the conglomeration of the Julie locates. The locates that are located in the budget where it says utility locates for $2,000, that's if we subcontract out to another company like ATS to locate for us a specific line that's either too deep, the material's not detectable by a piece of equipment we have, we're calling in a third party, we can't find it. That's what this line item in this specific budget that we're talking about here is. E. Wesley is speaking about Julie one-call locates, which is something completely different. And then your question resides that we have our own locates that our staff do. We used to, 2 years ago, subcontract out all of our locates in the city. We've now taken that back in-house.
Okay.
I
Any other-
apologize for that. I did not know we were in part of that Julie locate. I thought we contracted.
No,
I-
there's no
my
apology
mistake.
needed. We all learned. Anything else? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, with that, the water fund is now complete. As per the tentative schedule we set out, we'll go back to the rest of the enterprise funds, so go back to the commuter parking lot fund, which begins on page 171.
171.
Yep.
There's not much you can say about that, except we spent the money on the train station and now we have to replace it.
We're not replacing the train station again, as was pointed out to me. It's the parking lot this year. Yeah. So if we go to 172, the revenues, those are, the daily is up a little bit from this year, but more on par with the projected number. There's only really three significant streams of revenue in there: the quarterly passes, the daily passes, and then the fines, the tickets that the CSOs write in the lot. Those are, like I said, pretty consistent year over year. Going to the 173, the expenditures page. We did drop down the maintenance of buildings and grounds in the contractual side of the budget, but we did increase it on the commodity side of the budget. Other than that, everything else is functionally the same as it was this year, except for the transfer to the capital projects fund, which again is going towards the work that'll be done on the parking lot itself, the surface and the lighting in the commuter parking lot this coming season.
Questions? E. Wesley.
Yes.
I have one dropping down on the maintenance, is that not just the parking lot or is that the building?
That would be for the building.
Okay. Why will we drop down on maintenance on that building?
Yeah, I'll again defer to Mr. Kramer a
I
little
mean,
bit. But
with
we
all the
did-
problems we've been having over there,
Sure, and I know
why would we
John
downsize that?
I know John and John spoke, and like I said, they did drop the contractual portion down, but they did increase the commodities portion up 5,000. So it's not as big a decrease as just that one line item, but I'll defer to Mr. Kramer.
Mr. Kramer want to speak?
Sure, the contractual services kind of precluded us from having any money to do any work in-house, so we felt it best to switch that and put some money in commodities so we could do our own repairs in-house where we really didn't have a true commodities light item beforehand. Contractual allowed us to hire somebody to do the repairs, but we want to do the repairs in-house.
Just to that point, since our staff would be doing it, we're not going to have to pay for the labor for somebody else to come and do it. And so since we're not having to pay for that labor component, that also allowed the number to drop down a little bit more than it otherwise would have.
Alderman Arrezi.
Mr. Kramer, are you expecting to have no snow or ice for next year for the parking lot there? Or you just plan to use our surplus for salt?
Mr. Kramer.
We took that out 2 years ago. It was kind of a pain because really all we did was take one bill from Morton Salt and code it to the Metro parking lot. So we weren't really even paying attention to how much salt we were using out there specifically and billing it adequately. So just for the sake of not having to remember to do that, we just omitted it here and took it all out of MFT.
In return for that, but you have a contract with a supplier for if you need a truck or something to plow that lot?
Yep, we did institute a contract. We did not have to use it this year, obviously.